602-433-7000.
And thank you to Desert Financial Credit Union for their sponsorship of the KRIM Community Spotlight Program. Good morning, Rim Country. Chris Higgins in the studio here at Sawmill Theaters on this beautiful Wednesday morning. Hope you're having a great morning. This morning on our program we have District 1 County Supervisor Steve Christensen.
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve. And we're going to be talking about Gila County.
You betcha.
Yeah, what's going on in Gila County, different projects, things that are happening. There's always something happening and something going on.
Well, it's kind of the height of tourist season. Busy highways. Terrible when they have to close the highway. We've had a few fires. June is the month that probably the most problematic when it comes to fires. So I heard there was another small fire down at the junction of 188 and 87, and that's the place where you would turn to go to Jake's Corner.
Really? And when was that?
Just this morning.
This morning?
Yes, and I don't know how big it is. It's probably quite small. However, it can grow. We have winds and dry grass, so just be careful out there, and please don't be the one that starts the fire.
No, and you know, a lot of the fires, they aren't started, well, there's some, they're not started intentionally.
No.
And one of the ways that fires are started, vehicles that if you're towing something, you have chains, they're dragging on the road.
If you're dragging something, or you have your trailer, you know, the bearings melt off of it, or you have a problem with your vehicle, you pull over and start a fire that way. So
yeah, so it is just very important that you're careful. If you do have to pull off of the highway, off of the road, don't pull into tall grass. And I know it can be dangerous maybe if you stay close to the road, but there's a good chance you might start a fire with your exhaust system, catalytic converter, lighting the brush on fire. Something also that I saw, someone said they carry, and I believe many people probably carry a fire extinguisher in their vehicle, but he thought it was interesting because on boats it's mandatory that you have a fire extinguisher in your boat, but in vehicles, because here in Arizona we don't have inspections. They, in the metropolitan areas they test emissions, but like back east where you have vehicle inspections, where they check, your brakes, your lights, everything, your wipers, they check your vehicle to make sure it's safe. And, that's not done here in Arizona. So, a fire extinguisher, something that is not a bad idea.
Yeah, you can get the little ones. Now, commercial vehicles and stuff like trucks, big trucks, they have to have a fire extinguisher.
And
they're always burning their brakes up going down our hills.
Yep. And az511.com is the website. There's an app. That is where you want to go to see about road closures, fires, and it does show the fire that you mentioned that started or was reported at 8:52 a.m. this morning, and it doesn't show any closures. So the road, and that was, did it say southbound? So that's interesting, not on the northbound, where the, and this was just south of 188. Let's see here on the map. Yeah, it's not quite at the turnoff, but kind of, past that a little ways. So again, someone probably pulled off the road and
threw a cigarette out.
or something. Yeah. So, and the other fires, I believe, they're doing well with those. I saw reports approximately 50% contained, on the fires to the south. And I had to, I've been down in the valley the last couple days. And
down by Fort McDowell.
Yeah.
They're actually fairly small, but they've had some road closures because of it.
Yeah, yep, and they've, a couple have started right, on the side of Highway or State Route 87 northbound.
Yeah.
So they've had to close that, and That's when I was in the valley when those got closed, you know, driving down both times.
Yep.
And I look over on the, to the northbound, and wow, there's no traffic, there's no cars coming up. And then, lo and behold, there's all these emergency vehicles and firefighters and crews and a fire right by 87, the northbound lane.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is important. Be careful. Hopefully, I know the report we received with the town of Payson, that monsoon should be coming early July.
We have to get through about the next 3-4 weeks, and then hopefully we'll have a regular, normal monsoon type season. Humidity will go up, and all that helps a lot. Yeah.
Well, and that's I saw someone ask about forest closures, because that was something tomorrow is when not closures, I'm sorry, but restrictions. The
Stage one, yeah,
is for the entire Tonneau
Right.
National
All of it.
Forest. Yep, all of it. It was just those restrictions were just in the south, but they start tomorrow morning for the entire Tonneau National Forest. And I saw an email where it just detailed everything they're looking at, the humidity levels, just oh my goodness, so many factors: wind, weather, the predicted, what the weather will be like, winds, yeah.
And so stage one will be in effect countywide, or should I say throughout the forest, but that's essentially countywide.
Countywide, and also are in the town.
In the town of Payson, and that means no open flame fires. So you can't burn wood, you can't burn charcoal, and those are things, once you get them started, they're very difficult to get out, but they do allow then a propane barbecuer or something like that, because you can just turn that off. However, that doesn't mean you can't start a fire that way.
Yeah,
So
still have to be careful.
You still have to be careful. No smoking outside or outside of a car. No shooting. Right.
Yeah, and I did hear again from our fire chief, David Staub, that Payson will adopt the same restrictions, stage 1 restrictions, so within the town limits. It's the same as the county and Tonneau National Forest. He did say that the Jim Jones shooting range, if you did still want to participate in target practice, you can go out to the Jim Jones shooting range, and that would remain open.
That will, okay, good. That's good to know.
Remain open.
Yeah, that's a little bit more of a controlled space.
Correct. Yeah, it is. So what else exciting? I think June, are we getting close to the bridge ribbon cutting?
Down in Tonneau Basin, June 22nd, which is
okay.
Saturday, I believe, and there will be a ceremony.
Nice.
And the bridge is essentially going to be pretty ready around the 17th. So we're hearing rumors that ADOT may open it up to some traffic prior to the ceremony.
Wow. Okay.
But we don't know exactly. So on
June 22nd.
June 22nd, and let me check my calendar because I think that's at 10 a.m. when it's going to be nice and hot.
There we go.
So it's very exciting though. This is really the only bridge across the Tonneau. And it's a dandy one. It's really big. So let me get over here to the 22nd and see what we're doing. I see it's on my calendar, but it just says all day. Well, I have to, or you'll have to come up with, I think it's at 10 a.m., but
10 a.m. Okay.
I can't say for sure.
And that will be posted, we'll get that information out on the KRIM Radio Facebook page, and then also your page, Steve, was it
Supervisor Steve Christensen, I'll get it on there, but also you should be able to see the Gila County, call somebody if you're really interested, but I think it's going to be at 10 a.m.
Nice. So that happened, I want to say, it seems like relatively quick. I know it was a long time in the making, but as far as construction.
It's just, I think, under 2 years.
Wow.
So, and it's in budget, everything's going great. So it's grant money, comes through the state, and we as a county had to pay $3 million on that match. So there's usually some sort of a match associated with grants. And so for $3 million, we get essentially a $26 million bridge.
Yes, which is great. That is wonderful for everyone well, down on the other side of the river, for sure. And it just makes it better. I know in those situations where 10 a.m., so it is 10 a.m. June 22nd.
Yep, I just received from headquarters the official time, 10 a.m. June 22nd.
And yeah, because in the past you'd see when the river was flowing and you could not cross, people having to receive medication, or if there was an emergency, it'd be tough to get to people.
I remember I think it seems like it was back in the 80s, maybe it wasn't, but the river was going so strong and so bad, it was just taking property away. Nobody could get hay over there for their horses, and food, medication, all of that. So, you know, where they're building the bridge is a fairly wide part of the river, and that's why it's a crossing, because then it doesn't get super deep in those areas, but still very dangerous. And so the bridge is ended up being quite long. It's I don't know if you've seen it yet. I pass by it almost every week, so
Gotcha.
It's a very long, straight bridge. Yeah.
You know, and yeah, having again, like the last, not yesterday, but the 2 days prior, I drove through. It was one time it was at night though, and the other time it was daylight. But I just didn't look over to that side to see. But that again is exciting, a big project.
Big project.
Yeah. So what else is going on then in Gila County this summer?
Well, we're still working on upgrading the emergency water access points here. And we have the funding for it, and it's just a matter of implementing the project. And so we're working on that. 14 different sites throughout the rim country that are going to have 20,000 gallon capacity for getting trucks filled up. And they'll be closer to a fire or closer to problem area. Helicopters will be able to dip down in there.
Wow.
And it's so helpful, rather than coming back to, say, Green Valley Lake or something like that, and then traveling again, you know, where that whole cycle could be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. They can go to these dip tanks and maybe have water in 5 minutes.
Gotcha.
Or just very quickly.
And that's great in conjunction with the new, what is it, helitack base?
Yes, heliport.
Heliport.
Yes, and that's out in Star Valley. You can't see it from the highway.
Yeah.
But it's north of Star Valley. And the access point is actually through our property out there, the county property. And I was just out there a few weeks ago when they gave us a tour, kind of a grand opening kind of a thing. It's a spectacular facility. It's one of the best in the country, because a lot of the helitack or firefighting helicopter facilities are just pretty much not a facility at all. They're temporary, they're set up temporary in the forest. There's no conveniences, and this is great. I mean, it's just really great.
Yeah, so crews can stay there, and especially during fire season.
Right.
There can be crews that are stationed there, ready to go. I think there were 3 pads, 2 for light helicopters, 1 for heavy helicopter, and the kind of the war room or operations room gives them a great view of, you know, out there on the pads, and, you know, depending on where fires are. You know, I know they were talking about the fire up on Diamond Point that they were that started, and they were managing how they have a view right up onto the Diamond Point lookout area. Yeah, so
they have a big hangar out there for any maintenance or anything like that that they need to do, or pull a helicopter in to protect it from a storm, something like that. And so yeah, it's grown from kind of a very rinky-dinky thing that used to be actually across the highway, which is now what we call the university property. Okay, so that was all Forest Service that ended up being traded or bought, you know. And so then the helitack and all of that moved away for a while.
Yeah, and out at the airport, they were, setting up at the Payson Airport, but it was like temporary. They would have to come
Right.
in, get set up, and then they would take that down, and
Yeah, and they were living in a
off-season.
little like office trailer kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, where this facility is just a much better facility, and ultimately, it is for the safety of our community.
Yeah.
Of Rim Country here.
It makes it much safer to have that there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and it's really great. I'm so happy with a lot of the development that's occurring in our area over the last few years. It just seems like for so long we've been wanting our forest thinned, our watershed improved. We've needed more attention from the Forest Service and others, and we're receiving that now, and it's really exciting.
It is, yeah. I can't say enough good things really about the Forest Service. Matt Pachurik and his whole crew.
Right.
All the work they're doing, whether it's being involved with the watershed protection that's being done, thinning the forest, keeping those thin, working on those. The development of trails, the Highline Trails, Angie Abel working with National Forest Federation, I think other groups, and there's just so many things happening because it hasn't always been that way. It just seems like there were these needs and things that have been talked about, or we said, oh, it's we think this is important, we need to be doing something about this, but there didn't seem to be a lot of action for various reasons. But now
we're getting it, and I'm
Yes.
super happy about it. They're pulling logs out of pine right now, so they're actively logging up there. It's going to be probably, I think, a several-year project up there, but they're thinning up there. They're actually pulling logs out, and that's up kind of what you'd say on the east side of Pine, up in on the hill there, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's called Poco Pino. It's part of the Poco Pino project that is involving several locations up there. And so they're going to go up into Pine Canyon. There's this place up there called Camp La Maya, and it's like a girls' camp, and it's at the end of the road there up in, and so they're trying to figure out access and all that, but they're going to log up into the Pine Canyon and thin, and that's very needed right now. It's considered a very dangerous canyon.
Yes, and it's great. I know when we first moved up here in 1999, that's where we lived, in Pine. And it was really overgrown at that time, and then bark beetles came in, shortly
The
after
dead
we
trees,
moved
it
up there.
was amazing how many trees were dead.
Oh my goodness. And then they really, there was a large effort to just get a lot, cleared out, a lot of the trees. And I know driving up to Pine recently, it looks so much better, so much healthier.
Oh my goodness, they've really done a great job.
Yeah.
But that's ongoing, they need to keep it up.
Yep.
And if something happens down below the rim in that area or eastward, then it directly, it challenges the C.C. Cragen Reservoir. So this just up and over the hill, it's not very far away from those places. So that's why it's really important we do more than just around C.C. Cragen. We gotta break it up.
Yeah.
Were you able to take that helicopter flight?
I didn't take the helicopter flight, but I did a tour last year up there to see, to go up by C.C. Cragen and to see the different projects taking place. And it's very interesting to me the different techniques that they are using, like mastication in some areas.
Right.
So they're putting the chips, leaving the chips on the ground.
Right.
And then logging, the logging operations where they identify trees, marked trees, and they're taking out certain trees.
It's selective logging.
Yes. Yeah.
Everybody thinks logging means just cut down every tree in sight.
No.
We don't do that.
No.
But they're so dense, the density is incredible, and it's a renewable resource. I don't know why we're not just harvesting what we can, keeping everything safe, improving the watershed, and using those products.
Yep, and the products, the biomass that would the smaller, you know, pieces of limbs and underbrush that's trucked up to the biomass plant.
Right.
And then the trees that are taken down, they said to Phoenix, because the pine they can use to make pallets. So there's pallet manufacturing down in the valley that, you know, they are used for that. Yeah, it's very interesting to hear, you know, everything that's being done, and also all the methods that are utilized, but also all of the groups that are involved. And that's what's making it possible. And recently, who was it? Apple, I think on that tour, they mentioned how Apple, there was a donation by Apple to SRP, because SRP is kind of one of the leaders, you know, in this.
Yes.
You know, that.
The Wild Turkey Foundation, I think, is involved. There's quite a few groups involved.
Yeah, yeah.
And it takes, you know how they say it takes a village. Well, it takes collaboration to get some of this done. And everyone involved has a stake in it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's important for wildlife. It's important for the watershed. It's important for the logging and the biomass industry. It's important to Payson. You spend a lot of money getting water out of C.C. Cragen Reservoir. You sure don't want that reservoir to be damaged.
Yeah.
They said that if something really bad ran through there fire-wise, it would probably cost them $100 million to do the repairs, the damage that would, the mudslides, the whatever, into C.C. Cragen, and it's much cheaper for them to do preventative work than fix it for $100 million and not even have the situation safe again.
Yeah, exactly. It's where it could happen again.
It could,
the only thing is, I guess, when a fire burns through, it takes out, you know, most of the vegetation. So it might be a while before there could be a fire to that extent. But then also, you know, what does it do to the forest as far as people visiting? You know, wanting to visit the forest, go up and recreate, and so on. Yeah, it's. You know, we're very thankful that they're doing that, and like you said, I think that is what has made the difference here in Rim Country, are all the collaborations that you're seeing with all the different groups. There's groups that are, you know, bought in and buying into these projects and participating. It isn't a case where you know, you see the town, the county, different people, different organizations, I think, just say, you know, hey, okay, you know, you need to do this, or if you pay for it, then okay, you can, you know, have it. But a willingness to contribute a little bit. So if every group puts in a little bit, well, we can put in this, we can do this, we can add this. So then it makes these large projects a lot more feasible and obtainable, rather than just one entity or one organization doing it all. Yeah,
we need to get away from the idea, let's just put a Band-Aid on it and kick it down to the next leader. I think that we need to really have vision for the next 10, 20 years. Even though we're not going to be around and all that, it just makes so much sense to say, let's do something. If we have to pay a little bit more, or we have to commit more to it, let's do that, because it's going to save in the end. You don't just slap a coat of paint on it if it needs to be addressed, if there's termites eating everything away.
Yes.
And so you have to, it's like we're facing capital improvements. We got a lot of older buildings in the county, most of them are down south. And so as a building gets to be 50 or 60 years old, it still works, it's still functioning, but the roof's a mess, or the wiring boxes all need to be changed. And so we just recently gotten a report about some of the capital improvement projects that need to be done, and we have to decide which ones we're going to prioritize. But they're all in the millions of dollars to fix.
Yeah.
And it's, I think to myself, well, now the current Board of Supervisors has to face this dilemma head on, where if previous boards of supervisors would have committed maintenance money to these things and have, instead of having HVAC systems that are 35 years old, say we needed to do a slow procurement of replacement and keep everything up and running rather than wait until everything's bad and everything's broken and everything costs millions of dollars to fix. So we're facing that. And so we have a pocket and it has money in it, and there's not enough money in the pocket to fix everything. So we have to pick and choose what we want to do. And then next year do the same thing. So we're committed not to raise the property tax rate, and it has not gone up for 13 plus years. And so assessments is another thing. Your house is worth more, it's assessed more, and so you're paying more taxes because of that assessment change. And you can actually challenge that assessment if you think it's unfair. That's through the assessor's office, and so that's a separate office with a separate elected official. And so they set those rates. The Board of Supervisors sets the tax rate, and the tax rate right now has been the same for the last 13 years, and we have there's no discussion, intention, or motion toward increasing that. It would solve problems, though. You know how that goes. I mean, if we could raise it, we'd have money and we could fix all these things, but...
Well, you still couldn't even fix all. I mean, you probably couldn't even fix half.
Right,
because one of the issues is...
It would be a terrible thing to do to the people, though.
Yeah, well, you're limited on how much you can put it up, but what percentage of Gila County is private property?
3.5%.
So how much revenue do you really gain from an increase in property tax? There's a maximum amount that you can do, just the same as
there
the town.
is, and we're well below the maximum.
Yep.
Okay.
And, yeah, the town has an increased property tax in 16 years, but when we looked at, increasing it to the maximum, $200,000 of revenue for the town. Now, granted, the town receives 4%, of the tax, where the property tax, where the county receives 46%. So there is a much higher percentage that the county receives, but still you're talking how many millions? A few million? 4 million?
It would be a few million if we increased it, say, a full 1%. Now, please don't anyone get the message out there that that's what we're discussing. So, but to your theory, an increase of a minute amount would be more detrimental to just the morale of everyone, if that's the right way of saying it, and we wouldn't receive hardly any money. So we would have to increase it 1%, which would be close to 25% increase. And then we would see several million that we could work with. But we have no intention of doing that. We would rather just tighten our belt and accept the fact that the assessments are going up, and as the assessments go up, we end up with a little bit more income, and we're able to keep up.
And that's the thing, though, I think, and some people have that perception, like you said, where, if we did that, then we would be able to do everything. Where it wouldn't really give you that much more ability, because a few million in, what is it, your budget's 120-some million a year?
This last one was 150. We
150.
spend about 60% of that.
Yeah, so in a budget of that much, when you're looking at a few million, and what you're talking about, how many miles of road does a county have?
Yeah, 700.
700 miles of road.
Right.
Where the town has 100. So, they used to say to replace road $1 million a mile. Well, that's gone up significantly. Bridges are very expensive. Like you said, maintenance on buildings, new buildings, all of these costs. When you say, okay, we could generate another 3-4 million with a property tax increase, what that contributes to your budget and what that provides you the ability to do is very, very, very minimal compared to...
And then it impacts the public tremendously. So let's say that their taxes only went up $500 or $800 a year. Well, they're already high enough to where it's painful. We live in an area that's quite expensive to live in, and adding taxation to the property is very problematic for older people and stuff like that.
Property tax in this area is very low when you talk to people that come from other states. So, our property tax in Arizona is very low compared to, Northern, I talked to a lady came from Washington, her property tax was $14,000 a year.
Oh
Now
my.
it's like a few thousand. Talked to somebody from back in New Jersey, they're $20,000 a year, and they're like $3,000-4,000. So our property tax is very, very, very low here in Arizona, in the Gila County. That's just how it is. But if that's all you know, and you've seen your property tax increase from $1,000 a year to $3,000 or $4,000 a year, that's a big increase.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, wow, that's really gone up a lot. But the reality is, compared to other places, where those other places, they might have a much lower sales tax, or they don't
Right.
have other taxes. So it's all relative. But to have a high, Arizona has higher sales tax, but
Yep.
lower property taxes.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting when you talk to people, because again, if you talk to someone that's lived here in Payson or Arizona their whole life, and they say, wow, the property taxes have just gone crazy. We pay $4,000 a year now in our property tax.
Right.
And they talk to somebody that just moved here that was paying over $10,000 a year.
Right.
Yeah.
And some states don't have a state income tax.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so they have to make those differences up. And you say, oh, well, it'd be cheaper to live in Texas because there's no state income tax.
But their property taxes
But the
are
property
high.
taxes are higher.
Yep, yeah. It was interesting at the tour that you mentioned where you took the helicopter tour
Yeah.
around C.C. Craig. I had a chance to talk with one of the supervisors from Apache County.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be Cameron Davis's
Yeah.
brother.
Yes, Bob.
And it was really great, talking to him. But one of the things he said was, oh, Chris, we struggle up there in Apache County. And he's in St. John's, which is in Apache County. He said, yeah, our private land, at our county, only 11% of our county is
Yeah.
private land.
Yeah.
I go, bud, what do you think? Take a guess at Gila County.
Yeah.
And it was great because you and James Menlove were there, and I could confirm. I just wanted to make sure
Mhm.
that I was correct with, my number. But when I told him 3%, he said, how do you guys do it? How do you do it?
Very carefully.
Yeah.
So I thought we might be the lowest private property of any county in the nation, okay?
There's one.
There's one more that's only 2%.
Wow.
And it's in Wyoming.
Wow. Now, here's the thing. So our land, it's actually, 3% or so. In northern Gila County, I've heard that we're at like 1%.
Well, and you gotta understand that the mines own about 1.5% of that 3.5%.
Wow.
So that leaves 2% to just what you would call businesses and
Private-
residential.
Yeah, residential.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And then if you throw in agriculture, like say ranches or anything like that, we don't have a lot of agriculture, but we do have certain properties designated for having a lower tax rate because they have livestock or something like that.
Mhm.
And so those are not assessed in the same way.
Gotcha.
And so it becomes a problem,
Yeah.
but we're making it.
Yeah, and now one of the things that the county does receive is PIL money or PIL grant, payment in lieu.
Yeah.
But looking at that number, I think Gila County, we're either the highest or second highest county in Arizona as far as that amount.
Yeah.
But that amount,
It's about 6 million.
yeah, I was gonna say it's not a very large amount considering the revenue that could be generated from that land
Yeah.
if it was privately owned and there were property taxes.
Yeah, and then the schools get some money also. So PIL is associated with payment in lieu of taxes, and then also, I can't remember the acronym, but there's money that comes in for the school districts as well.
Mm.
And so a lot of this kind of started when logging went away,
Mm-hmm.
and the Forest Service then came up with this plan to subsidize some of the western counties for that, and we qualify for quite a bit, but 6 million doesn't really do very much in the whole scheme of things like we just talked about.
Yeah.
Now, it's vital that we get that,
Yes,
and I go
yeah.
back to Washington every year to, it's not budgeted money, it is always up for consideration every year. And that's scary because in in a down year or times when times are lean, Congress may cut the PILT money because that involves billions of dollars. And it really affects rural Arizona. And so we go back and kind of fight for that and make sure, and everybody I talk to, Democrats and Republicans, pretty much like, oh yeah, you need the PILT money, we understand. So that's...
yeah, that's important. That
well, either that or just give us the Forest Service land, you know. Let us have it, and then we can develop it, or we can log it, or we can turn it into something productive, and we can do it ourselves.
Yeah, no, the logging industry, and here's a great example. We're sitting at Sawmill Theaters, which used to be the sawmill and logging operations here in Payson and Gila County, and how that affected this community. It had a big impact.
Large employer.
Yep, Arizona, New Mexico. There were, in the Southwest, it really impacted Arizona and rural. And I guess, Maricopa County didn't feel the impact of that, but Gila County did.
Gila County felt it big time, all the rural areas. So not only do you lose the jobs and the whole infrastructure of the logging industry, all those that were involved with it, but then the Forest Service loses that money too, because you pay for the privilege of taking those logs. Okay, so the Forest Service income stream changes. So that's got to be subsidized in another way. And then all of the products. I remember we're literally sitting about right where they would stack all the 2x4s to dry, and the smell, the odor from those logs, wet logs, and the air moving through them was just so pleasant. We would take a walk down Main Street, and on a warm day, as the air moved through all of those stacked up 2x4s that had separation around them, it was like an evaporative cooler.
Wow.
It was really great.
Wow.
And of course, that's all gone. We still have the horn that goes off every once in a while.
Yeah, the whistle, and that is the whistle from the sawmill that used to blow in the morning. I don't know if it was 7 or 8, noon and 5.
Yep, it was 8, noon, and 5.
And now it's just noon and 5.
Noon and 5, yeah.
Yeah, so I know it's great to hear that. I like if you're out at the farmer's market, Payson Farmer's Market, that started back up, and it's right here in the Sawmill Theater parking lot, and it ends at noon, but that whistle blows maybe a few minutes before, the noon hour and the 5 o'clock hour. So if you're out there to see people, sometimes the ones that are used to it, they jump a little bit.
It can be kind of noisy.
It is.
Yeah, well, but it's a pleasant thing.
It is. Love hearing it.
Yeah.
Love hearing it. Well, Steve, thank you so much. Went over a little, but it's great talking with you.
Great to be here. Great to be here.
Thank you for everything you're doing and everything that's happening in Gila County. These are great things.
And we collaborate, so we work with the town of Payson and town of Star Valley, and so we're all here to improve the lives of our people.
Yep, there we go. That's what it's about. Well, thank you again, and thank you everyone for listening and watching. And time to get back to the music here on KRIM. Again, if you're traveling down to the valley, you want to check AZ 511. As we mentioned, and Steve mentioned at the beginning of the program, there was a small fire that started this morning in the southbound side of 87, just past the 188 turnoff to Tonto Basin, but it looks like that's all taken care of. There wasn't any road closure, but it can happen so quickly. You just don't know. So again, that's az511.com. Well, getting back to the music here, we have Rat, the Doobie Brothers, Roxy Music, and more. But first, let's get a quick update from the National Weather Service to see what today's going to look like weather-wise.
Warm.
Yeah, I know. 94, I think today, 97 tomorrow, 98. All right, see you guys.